You might think it's just a lamp, but what if I told you these glowing masterpieces are among the most celebrated works of decorative art? Every curve, every shard of glass was crafted with astonishing precision, and the stories behind them are just as radiant as the lamps themselves. Today, we're uncovering the most stunning Tiffany lamps ever appraised on Antiques Roadshow, rare finds that left even the experts speechless and collectors in awe. And as you explore these treasures, you'll notice one thing again and again. Nearly every lamp is appraised by the same person, Arlie Sulka. She's one of the most respected Tiffany experts in the world, trusted for her unmatched experience in authenticating these masterpieces. Let's get started. At first glance, this isn't just a lamp, it's a garden in glass, frozen in bloom, a glowing cascade of tulips stretching from top to base.
This lamp was bought new by my grandfather's uncle. I would guess sometime before World War I. He liked the lamps with the tulips, but he wanted one with more tulips than the regular tulip shades that they had. So he special ordered a shade with more tulips than the regular tulip lampshade.
Unlike the standard tulip lamps, this one skips the earthy soil sections. It's all floral, bold, immersive, and full of life. The buyer paid big, $125 for the base, $250 for the standard shade, and another $125 just for the extra tulip detailing. That's $500 back then, the cost of a small house. But the real magic lies in the glass. Look closely, and you'll find rare phosphate stringing glass, glowing reds, ripples, and drapery textures that became almost extinct by the 1920s. That's why experts date this around 1915, right at the height of Tiffany's craftsmanship.
It has wonderful patina both on the base and on the leading. In fact, it's what a friend of mine in the business calls righteous patina. It's just the way you want to see patina.
Even more remarkable, it's all original. The base, the cap, the shade. No mismatched parts. And let's not forget where it came from. Tiffany's bond with Chicago runs deep. He wowed crowds at the 1893 World's Fair, landed church commissions, and even designed interiors for Marshall Field's itself, where this lamp was first sold. A special order lamp, a legendary store, a perfect survivor. But how much is a treasure like this worth today?
In terms of value, at auction, an estimate for this would be between $150,000 and $200,000.
Okay.
Now, in a retail shop, and for insurance purposes, I would put a value of $375,000 on it.
Okay.
So thank you for bringing it in.
Thank you.
Sometimes a friend's final gift becomes more than a memory. It becomes a window into art history. That's what happened when a guest inherited not one, but two glowing treasures from Tiffany Studios. One floor lamp, one table lamp, both quietly stunning, both designed over a century ago, and both far more special than they first appear.
They belong to a good friend of mine who passed away 3 years ago in 2005, and he left them to me.
And what did he tell you about them?
He told me that they were Tiffany and that the floor lamp was originally in New York, I think in the 40s, and then he moved to Chicago.
At first glance, they're geometric, but look closer, and the designs reveal nature hidden in symmetry. The table lamp features the woodbine pattern, a lush, curling vine design woven into a backdrop of angular panels. The floor lamp? That's called swirling leaf or lemon leaf, depending on who you ask. But either way, it's unmistakably Tiffany.
I'm not exactly sure what Tiffany called it. I actually think that both of these lamps are on the early side, circa 1905. One of the reasons why is that the big shade, the glass is a very transparent glass, and at the time when people were first using electricity or even using fuel, in order to get any light, the glass had to be very transparent.
Their luminous colors aren't just beautiful. They're functional art, crafted for a new era. Hidden in the details are more clues to their origins. A tiny signature tag on the base, an early production number etched with a dash, once thought to mean special order.
This has particularly beautiful, beautiful glass in it, as does that lamp. I'm going to put this down for a second, and I just want to point out, clearly these sockets have been replaced a while ago, but nevertheless, they're not original Tiffany sockets. The other thing is on both of these lamps, a lot of times these get lost, but these are the originals, which is a very nice bonus to have. And even the original caps have a lot of value today.
Really?
The floor lamp stands on a senior decorated base, a lesser-seen version of Tiffany's pod-decorated form. And together, they represent not just lighting, but the evolution of modern American design.
A lamp like this, I would recommend putting an insurance value of $85,000. And on this one, I would put an insurance value of $45,000.
Okay.
They're both very nice examples, and I'm delighted to see them.
That's $130,000 worth of glowing glass and timeless design, and a perfect tribute to the friend who left behind more than just memories. In the late 1960s, a mother browsing a neighborhood flyer spotted a listing. Glass lamp for sale? She raced over, saw it, and immediately knew it was Tiffany.
My mother found this in the late 60s. There was a little neighborhood newspaper flyer, and she read that there was a glass lamp for sale. And my mother saw it, knew what it was.
And the woman, she also knew what it was. It had belonged to her grandfather.
The seller wasn't clueless either. The lamp had belonged to her grandfather, but it was simply too big for her small studio apartment. When asked for a price, she answered $125. The buyer didn't hesitate, straight to the bank. And just like that, one of the rarest Tiffany lamps changed hands.
And your family has taken very good care of it.
Well, there's 5 of us, and my mother did hide it.
She had it hidden away in the
Special hiding
house.
place in the house.
Tucking it safely away for decades, where it stayed untouched and protected. It resurfaced only recently, still glowing with its century-old elegance. This is a Tiffany Studios rose helmet lamp, crafted around 1905. The helmet refers to the rounded dome shape of the shade, while the rose reflects the petal-like pattern in the glass. But even more impressive than the shade is the base.
It rests on this absolutely magnificent example of a Tiffany base. It has a wonderful Art Nouveau quality to it, and it's called the Arc and Leaf. And if you look down closely to the base, you will see these wonderful stylized leaf forms that follow all around the edge and then are repeated in a slightly different style moving up towards the top of the base.
This wasn't just a lamp. It was a luxury item for New York's upper crust, costing around $200 back in 1905, an enormous sum for the time. Yet, despite knowing it was a Tiffany, the original seller had taken it to 2 dealers who dismissed it as fake.
The woman who was selling it, because she did know it was a Tiffany, she had taken it into 2 dealers in her area.
Right.
And the one dealer looked at it and she said, "It's not a Tiffany, it's the wrong finish on the base."
Okay.
And so she was turned around by 2 different dealers.
Okay, well, that's okay. This is called the etched doré finish. It's as right as rain. There's just, everything is beautiful about this lamp.
They were wrong. The etched doré finish is entirely correct. And the lamp's condition? As right as rain. And the value? The appraiser delivered the news with a smile.
This lamp is worth between $80,000 and $125,000. Mom had a good eye. Congratulations. Oh, I have to give you guys a hug. Isn't it great to get news? Oh, you're so cute. That's great.
Wow.
Tears, laughter, and disbelief followed. But one thing is clear. This family's story, just like the lamp, shines bright through time.
After an auction, I had gone back to pick up some other items that I picked, and I had become friendly with the auctioneer's daughter, and she said somebody reneged on a purchase of a Tiffany lamp. Long story short, my spouse basically said, "Get the lamp."
When was that?
2017. I paid $11,000, including auctioneer's premium.
What she got was far more than she expected. This isn't just a Tiffany lamp. It's a Tiffany Studios geometric table lamp created around 1906. Originally designed as an oil lamp, it's since been carefully electrified, but with all the right touches. The appraiser zeroed in on one crucial detail: the fit between the shade and the base. They matched perfectly, a strong indication that these two original pieces had stayed together for more than a century.
How the ring was constructed, and if you see, it's flattened. Later, when this particular shade was made to fit on an electric lamp, the ring on the interior would be protruding so that it would fit on the wheel of the electrified lamp.
Even more shocking, the condition. No cracks, no signs of repair, not even tiny flaws in the shade. A true rarity after over 100 years. The appraiser admitted he hadn't seen a Tiffany shade this clean in 40 years. The signature inside the lamp confirmed its early origin, and its rich, untouched patina earned it the highest praise in the antiques world: righteous patina.
This was originally an oil lamp, and it has been converted to electricity, but it's done correctly. I have friends in the business who would look at this patina and they'd call this righteous patina.
With collectors now gravitating toward geometric designs, this lamp's appeal and value has only grown.
So in today's market, I'd say for a retail price, anywhere between $15,000 or $20,000.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's good. That's very nice to hear.
This lamp hung silently above a Milwaukee family's dining room table for 4 decades. Completely unrecognized as one of the earliest surviving works by Louis Comfort Tiffany. Back in 1965, the guest's parents bought a home on Milwaukee's East Side. Hanging in the dining room was this unusual heavy fixture. It remained there for the next 40 years, until some worn-down links caused it to be taken down for safety.
This is a very early Tiffany piece. Oh my gosh. It actually dates from about 1892. And it's before Louis Comfort Tiffany's company became Tiffany Studios, which is what everybody says. But in the 1890s, the name of the company was Tiffany Glass and Decorating Company.
Okay.
He had taken a lease on a glass-making company. He was using their facilities in Brooklyn from about 1881 to about 1892. The name of that company was Heidt, H-E-I-D-T. And that's where, on all likelihood, these beautiful opalescent glass pieces were made, as well as the piece that sits in the middle of the fixture.
These were the same kinds of elements seen in early Tiffany mosaics and church windows, but what makes this piece especially rare isn't just the date, it's the surviving condition. All of the original metalwork is intact, including the ceiling canopy, central pole, and even the single bulb socket. That kind of preservation in a lamp this old is almost unheard of. Tiffany's early work often embraced Moorish and Orientalist influences, a fascination that shines through in the twisted silvered metal resembling rope and in the overall exotic elegance of the design. It was part of his mission to bring beauty into everyday life, even through light fixtures.
Tiffany was fascinated with Orientalism and Moorish design, and it's reflected in much of his interior decoration.
Wow.
What was really exciting to see was that you had all the metal parts. You never find the canopy that fits into the ceiling, or the pole here that at the very bottom there's one socket for one light bulb.
Right.
Even with minor damage to 2 of the glass links, the appraiser was clear. This lamp could be restored and safely rewired. And thanks to its rarity, style, and completeness, it would now sell in a retail shop for between
$15,000 and $20,000.
Wow. 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 I am so amazed. Whew.
It was nearly knocked over a dozen times during childhood games of tag, but somehow this antique survived every wild lap around the living room.
This lamp was my paternal grandfather's. He was an Irish immigrant, and he worked in New York City at, I think, Tiffany Studios. I inherited this lamp in 2017. Now it's my treasure.
And do you remember it as a little girl?
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah. So here's a funny thing about this lamp. My dad could be a little naughty sometimes, so when my mom would go out, my sister and I, let's play tag. So we would play tag around our homes, and this lamp almost fell over. It must have been almost a dozen times, but it's so heavy.
The Tiffany lamps are made with a really good center of gravity, so it takes a lot to knock them over.
But what seemed like just a family relic turned out to be a rare, authentic piece of Tiffany craftsmanship. The appraiser immediately pointed to the shade's signature. The design is sleek, balanced, and highly classical, with a stylized Greek key motif at the base. Some elements even hint at the Egyptian revival that swept the 1920s. Interestingly, while most floor lamps like this used Tiffany's iconic Favril glass, this one features standard leaded glass, possibly due to a supply shortage or artistic choice.
The reason I ask is because based on the way this is signed, particularly on the shade, it says Tiffany Studios NY period instead of writing out New York. And usually that type of signature would appear on a shade that was made from 1910 on.
One of the coolest hidden features? The tilting shade, engineered to swivel so you could aim the light while reading in a chair. The guest had never even noticed it before. Tiffany Studios was famous for these kinds of thoughtful, high-end details. Even the finish is gold-plated bronze, and the mottled texture comes from an acid-etched treatment, all made with only the finest materials of the time. Lamps like this were considered true luxury items, sold through Tiffany's catalog in multiple finishes, with a 25% markup if you chose gold over the standard brown-green patina. That opulence still resonates today.
They only use the finest materials
Oh,
at
wow.
Tiffany Studios.
Oh, that's wonderful.
This has an acid etched finish. That's why you see this modeling on the surface. And the shade could easily have been sold separately. In a retail venue, this would sell for between $10,000 and $15,000.
That's exciting. That's so cool.
From childhood chaos to quiet admiration, this floor lamp has survived more than just the test of time. It's a glowing link to one family's roots and to the brilliance of Tiffany Studios itself.
I was taking a walk in the morning, and I got about 4 houses down from where I live, and there was a sign that said free. And so I walked by it the first day, and then the second day I thought about it again, and I thought, well, I'll take this, and it's pretty ugly, but I can give it to somebody, but it's a lamp, so I'll just take it.
So she brought it home, planning to chop the cord off and rewire it, until a helpful neighbor suggested she get it checked out first. That advice may have saved her thousands. When the appraiser took a closer look, he made a jaw-dropping discovery. This wasn't just any old lamp. It was a genuine Louis Comfort Tiffany lamp, made by Louis C. Tiffany Furnaces, Inc., one of the final iterations of Tiffany's famed companies, operating between 1920 and 1928.
It is a Louis Comfort Tiffany lamp. It's actually made by Louis C. Tiffany Furnaces, Inc., which is one of the names of Louis Comfort Tiffany's companies. He had several names starting in the late 1870s going into the early 1930s. This is the next to last name of the company.
Its gilded bronze base was intricately enameled. Among collectors, this specific color ranks high on the value scale. Tiffany used the term Favril, from the Old English word for handmade, as a personal signature of craftsmanship. And inside the shade, it was clearly marked LCT Favril. But here's the most important part. The shade holds the bulk of the value. If it breaks, the lamp base alone is worth only $500 to $1,000. Intact, however, with its brilliant finish and rare form, the full lamp could easily command.
In a retail venue, something like this could sell for between $10,000 and $15,000.
Oh my God.
And to think, it was just sitting on the sidewalk. Sometimes the greatest treasures aren't locked in display cases or passed down through royalty. Sometimes they're just waiting for the right person to walk by twice. Not every antique lights up the room with dollar signs, but every piece, especially one from Tiffany Studios, has a story. This elegant gilded bronze desk lamp dating from around 1925 was a family heirloom, left to the guest and her husband by his late aunt.
It's made of gilded bronze. It would have been made in, I suspect, the mid to late 1920s. When we think of a Tiffany lamp, we tend to think of something worth a lot of money. But the majority of Tiffany lamps, like this one, I'm afraid aren't.
A classic in shape and form, it carried the signature styling of Tiffany Studios from their later years. Smooth lines, warm metallic tones, and restrained elegance. Naturally, when people hear Tiffany, their minds jump to stained glass masterpieces and six-figure price tags, and that's what the guest hoped for too. But the appraiser delivered a bit of a reality check. He gently explained that while the lamp is authentic and beautiful, it belongs to a more common category of Tiffany lighting. These small desk lamps were produced in greater numbers, and many have survived intact over the past century. As a result, the value doesn't quite match the mystique.
If it came to auction today, you would certainly see an estimate on this of between $1,000 and $1,500.
Okay.
Modest, especially in the world of Tiffany, but as any collector knows, value isn't always measured in dollars. Sometimes it's the hands that passed it down, the family stories it carries, and the warm glow it still casts across a desk long after its maker is gone. Every collector hopes to find a treasure, but sometimes the story behind the object turns out to be more valuable than the object itself.
This lamp is one that my husband and I purchased from a fellow that we had been buying a lot of stained glass from in Columbus, Mississippi. He used to go up into the Midwest and the Northeast and scour around for special things. And he liked us. We were a very young couple, young parents. And he called us when he got this and said, come on, see this, I have something that you will really enjoy seeing.
Okay.
And I fell in love with it.
And when did you buy it?
Late 70s, mid to late.
And do you remember what you paid for it at that time?
$4,000, which was a pile of money for us as...
My goodness, yes.
The seller pointed to a mark, taped inside the shade, and that was enough for the couple. They fell in love with the lamp, brought it home, and made it part of their lives for decades. They believed they owned a piece of American decorative art history, but the truth was a little different.
So some of the issues with the shade are that there had been apparently an old repair here, and someone had put maybe a new ring here, and then we have underneath a Tiffany mark here.
We never noticed that.
Okay, you never noticed that?
Never noticed that.
You were just told it was a Tiffany lamp?
Well, we saw the signature on the lamp,
shade.
on the
Okay.
shade,
Okay.
and took it as that.
Okay. I have some bad news for you. This is not a Tiffany lamp.
Okay.
Upon close inspection, the appraiser noticed several red flags. The base had been repainted, parts looked newer or mismatched, and the signature was inconsistent with authentic Tiffany markings. The glass in the shade, while attractive, lacked the top-tier craftsmanship of true Tiffany work. Even the leading, the soldering technique used to join the glass, was second-rate by comparison. It was probably a hybrid lamp, a marriage of a decent shade and a different base, possibly created in the mid-20th century and given a faux Tiffany identity. Despite their hope, this wasn't an original from the famous Tiffany Studios. But here's the twist. Even after learning the truth, the guest wasn't crushed. She'd suspected it might not be real, and after years of enjoying it, the lamp had already paid emotional dividends. She said she felt better knowing the truth, and even more comfortable continuing to use it, without the weight of unrealistic expectations.
I think if you put this in an auction right now, in the condition it is, you're probably $300 to $500 or maybe even $400 to $600.
Today, this lamp would sell for just $400 to $600 at auction, less than a sixth of what was paid for it nearly 50 years ago. But its value lies in the lesson. Not everything marked Tiffany is the real deal, and in antiques, provenance, quality, and authenticity are everything. Still, for this guest, the lamp remains priceless, not for what it is, but for how it's lit up her life.
It's Tiffany Studio, I know that much. But
and how do you know that?
It's on the bottom.
On the bottom, right.
It's not like most Tiffany lamps where there's a lot of stained glass work. I don't know quite why it's so different.
And where did you get it?
I got it from my dad, who got it from his dad.
This wasn't the dazzling stained glass Tiffany lamp most people picture. Instead, it featured a more subtle design. A metal base with a brown to green patina and a unique glass shade. The appraiser explained it's known as a Favril Fabrique, or linen fold shade, made around 1910 to 1915. These shades were part of Tiffany Studios' more understated yet elegant designs. Dating was confirmed by the type of switch at the back, typical of later period Tiffany production. Though not as ornate as the famous dragonfly or wisteria lamps, this piece still carried the timeless craftsmanship of Tiffany Studios. And the value?
I would place a value on this for insurance from $4,000 to $6,000.
Really?
It's a lovely lamp, and I'm so happy that you brought it to the roadshow.
Some of the most valuable antiques spend decades in the shadows, literally. That was the case for this Tiffany Studios hanging shade, tucked away in an attic in Toledo for over 30 years. The guest's father, a carpenter, had brought it home during one of his restoration projects. It stayed hidden until one day, his wife spotted the barely visible Tiffany Studios New York mark on the rim. That quiet moment of discovery changed everything. Known to most collectors as the acorn pattern, the appraiser revealed its true name from original Tiffany catalogs, the vine border pattern. Those delicate glass segments that resemble acorns are actually leaves along vines.
I would date this circa 1906. This came in a variety of sizes and shapes and colors, and actually it's very appealing to people who want a hanging shade. They don't want a very vibrantly colored one or flowers. It might go with an arts and crafts interior. It might go with a modern interior. First of all, this is the kind of shade during this economy that the price has been a little unstable.
There were many of these shades made, and this particular one lacked its original fixture. Still, it carried a retail value of around
cost in the neighborhood of $10,000. That would be a retail value on the shade. What's interesting is you could go out and find the hardware, and when you do find it, it could cost in the neighborhood of maybe $2,000, $2,500. But it's not the easiest thing to do, and it is a premium in the marketplace. But if you were to get the original hardware and you did put it on the lamp, this would be worth between $15,000 and $20,000.
With the hardware.
If you could get the original hardware. It's that important and that unusual.
Sure.
It was my grandmother's. It was on her desk, and it was just a lamp in the house. After my mother passed away and the appraiser went through and was itemizing everything, and he said it might well be a Tiffany lamp, but it wasn't anything that the family talked about.
Okay, and what was the appraisal on it?
It's about $2,000 to $3,000.
Okay.
This is indeed a Tiffany Studios lamp, confirmed by the stamp on the bottom. Dated 1906. The elegant bronze harp-shaped base and the green Favril damascene shade are telltale signs of authentic Tiffany craftsmanship. One important detail. This lamp was made specifically for electric use, not oil. The smaller fitter rim and the original key-style switch confirm that. However, the current chain pull wasn't original and could even risk cracking the glass shade. A reminder that antique functionality matters as much as beauty.
The value today is $6,000 to $7,000. That would be a retail price.
Okay, great.
Another desk lamp, another legacy, quietly glowing for over a century.
I bought it in the late 60s in Los Angeles from an antique dealer. In fact, I still have the receipt.
Really? Now, do you remember what year?
I believe it was 1967.
1967. What did you pay for it?
$130 plus tax.
What she had bought was a handle lamp, dated circa 1915, designed in the cattail pattern. At first glance, it resembled the famed Tiffany leaded glass style. And back in the 60s, people didn't always know the difference, but this was not true leaded glass. In fact, Handel specialized in what's known as an overlay lamp. The colorful glass pieces weren't set into lead like a Tiffany. Rather, the metal overlay was folded over a single sheet of colored glass, giving the illusion of leaded panels. The coloration wasn't in the glass itself. It was part of a painted finish applied beneath the overlay. What made it truly remarkable was how this method created a visual masterpiece while keeping costs and complexity down. And yet, decades later, its craftsmanship still commands major respect.
If this were to sell in a gallery, it would sell between $10,000 and $12,000.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
You held on to it,
Oh
and
my gosh.
you've got a real gem.
I am just shocked.
From $130 to a five-figure delight, some gems just need a few decades to shine their brightest.
What I brought you is a lamp that's been in my family since about 1915, and it's been part of my household since the late 1970s.
And what do you think it is?
Well, the family has always called it the Tiffany lamp. I've never had it appraised. I've always assumed it's a Tiffany. I saw some marks that made me believe that it was indeed a genuine Tiffany. And when I looked online, I was a little disappointed because this type of lampshade, as I understood it, was of the lesser desirable Tiffany lamps.
Passed down since 1915, from a silent film mogul to his great-grandchild, this unassuming living room lamp turned out to be a rare, valuable piece of design history. The guest's great-grandfather, Frank J. Marion, had outfitted his grand estate with Tiffany silver, rugs, and lamps. And this one was more than just a lamp. It was a combo lamp table, which stunned even the appraiser.
You have a lamp table. The glass shade does have a signature on it. It's what we call a Damascene shade. And I don't want to take it apart now because it's a little delicate, but the signature is on the inside of the fitter rim, as are some small chips.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a mark on the underside of the base. And if you just help me for a second.
Sure.
We're just going to tip it a little bit, but it's
Okay.
under one of the feet, and it's stamped Tiffany Studios.
That's, I'm sure, the mark that I saw.
One of the things that I also noticed about the shade is it has some carved bugs on it.
Yes.
And if you look really closely, the bugs are surrounding these little bubbles on the shade. The carving around the bubbles is to make lemonade out of lemons. And then it became something that collectors aspire to having. And so that it actually makes the shade better. What did you decide this was worth?
Well, when I tried to do my limited amount of research, I thought it was around $2,500.
Because of the table, this is only the third one I've seen in 35 years.
That's pretty cool.
And I would say in a retail shop, this could bring between $20,000 and $25,000.
Wow. That's a lot more than I think any of us would have expected.
Thanks to its rarity and completeness. Even without the table, it would still fetch around $15,000. From a movie mogul's estate to a priceless family heirloom, this lamp table fusion glows with both history and value. Some treasures sparkle in plain sight. Others lie buried beneath decades of dust and silence, like this Tiffany lamp, once forgotten in a dirt floor basement, now glowing like a lotus blooming after a century-long sleep.
I inherited the lamp a year ago when my father passed away. Back in the 50s, my grandmother worked for wealthy people in Atherton and Menlo Park area, and apparently she found this lamp that was down in the basement. It was a dirt basement, crusted with dirt, and she brought it home, cleaned it up, and she gave it to my mother.
This is the Lotus Bell table lamp, a design so graceful it feels like it grew from nature itself. The shade mimics a lotus leaf unfurling upward, delicate yet dramatic. Tiffany Studios made this model in two forms: the bell shape you see here, and a flatter, wider variant. But this one, it's something even rarer, an early production made between 1902 and 1904, before catalog numbers became standardized. The underside of the base is stamped with the Tiffany Glass and Decorating Company monogram, as well as Tiffany Studios, New York, and a 5-digit number. And that rich statuary bronze finish, an early patina used before Tiffany shifted toward more uniform tones. But not everything here is original. The lamp's socket and switch were replaced. a common tweak over time, but one that affects its value. The original switch would have echoed the base's fluted design, a small ribbed detail collectors love.
Additionally, on the shade, there's a teeny little tag that is stamped Tiffany Studios, New York. That tag was usually applied to a shade between 1902 and 1904. The patina on the leading on the shade does not match the patina on the base. This kind of finish is something that you'd see early on. We called it a statuary bronze finish, but the leading on the shade has a brown patina on it.
Still, the lamp's beauty and historical value remain intact. But in today's market?
In the condition it's in, I would say $35,000 to $45,000 retail. If you were able to get the switch and the socket back the way it should be, it would be on the higher end, maybe $45,000 to $50,000.
That's exciting. I love buried treasure.
Me too.